Sarah and Casey, thank you so much for coming along today for me to interview you. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit, Sarah, and say what books you've written and your most recent book and what it's about?
Hi everyone, thanks for coming on a Friday night. My name's Sarah Linley. I'm the author of The Wedding Murders, which is out in paperback on Thursday, but it's been out in ebook since February. I'm also the author of a book called The Beach, which has then subsequently been renamed The Trip. So it's very confusing, not just for my readers, but also for me. So yeah, both psychological thrillers.
And Casey, would you like to talk a bit about yours?
Hi everyone, I'm Casey Kelleher and I am author of the latest book, I'll Never Tell, which is a psychological thriller. And I've also written another psychological thriller called Mine. This is my author copy here, hence the line across the front. I normally, or used to write gangland. I've written 12 gangland books. But I've just kind of turned my hand to psychological thrillers in the last couple of books. So I'm kind of between both genres.
Awesome. Okay. And I wrote The Cult most recently, and Mother Loves Me was my debut. And I'm here today to shine the light on you two and talk about writing and all things psychological thrillers. So my first question is, what gave you the idea for your recent book, Casey, I'll Never Tell?
Normally with my stories, I generally think of like a scene in my head and the story evolves around that scene. So all I had in my head for that particular scene to start off with was a brick going through somebody's window.
But what gave you that idea, just to interrupt, what gave you the idea of that brick?
I'm not sure. I do get my ideas from anywhere. It could be a conversation, it could be a little snippet of something I've heard or seen, it could be from something on TV. Some books you might see something in a newspaper and that story will come from there. But I just had I always get a really strong feeling for a character or a scene. And in this particular book, that was the scene. It was just a brick through the window. I had no idea who threw it, who's the victim, what's going to unravel. And that was kind of, for me, I felt like it'd be a really kind of big focal scene. But actually, there's a lot more bigger dramatic scenes in there. That's just my starting point. So there was obviously the story before that and after, but that was my starting point with the whole story. Kind of like revenge, what's going on, and fear of being safe.
Yeah, so sort of those ideas spun off the brick.
Yeah.
And then did you just start writing or are you a planner?
I tend to just, be a pantser, write my plans. Generally, especially with the gangland books, they're much more character-led. So I think that I just go with the flow. I generally have an idea of roughly what's going to happen. Sometimes I have the ending in mind as well. With psychological thrillers, I do think you need to plot more. I've really, particularly this next book that I'm writing at the moment, I really have found it tough to not, to have much more of a structure before you go ahead and write, because it's much more plot-led, I think, whereas the ganglands are much more character-led.
Interesting. Okay. And Sarah, over to you. So what gave you the idea for The Wedding Murders?
So I read a book called The Dinner by Herman Koch, and I don't know if you've read this before. And basically, the entire action takes place over the course of a dinner. And so it's very, very claustrophobic. And as a reader, you know that there's a starter, which is the build-up, a main, which is most of the plot, and then the dessert, which is the finale. And I thought, I love this. I love this as a reader. I wonder if I could do something like that. But I thought, I don't think I can manage to write an entire book over the series of a couple of hours. So I thought I wanted to do something that was quite time restricted. And then I just thought, what's time restricted? What do we know is going to happen? What are the sort of key points? And came up with a wedding. And from there, I thought, oh, great, there's loads of conflict. There's family, there's friends, there's people who know you from childhood, there's people who from work, etc. I also really wanted to write a road trip novel, and I thought, how on earth am I going to marry the two? So in The Wedding Murders, there's a second plot line, which is about a pop band, and they're on tour, and then that allowed me to write a road trip novel as well. So I put the two together.
Oh, awesome. And did you find it quite an easy one to write?
It's a lot easier said than done to write over a tight time scale because your characters need to sleep. You need to be realistic about what, when the children go to bed or where everyone is. So although I had a tight structure, that did come with some challenges as well.
Right. So did you plan yours before then?
I use something called the snowflake method, which I don't know if you're aware of.
Never heard of it. No.
Right. So it's sort of in between. So you basically start off with a synopsis, and then you work on character, then you work on plot, then you work on character, then you work on plot. So you're writing and plotting as you go along. And I found that that's the way that works for me.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Awesome.
How about you?
Go on, you go.
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Oh, I'm a bit like Casey. I have this kind of vision in my head, like, an image. Like with Mother Loves Me, I had this image of a dark room with dying flowers and this little girl sitting at a table and a woman painting her face to make her look like a doll. It's like really bizarre, but I just had this image, and then the story just goes from that. And I'm driven by character when I write the story, like character cause and effect, like what the character decides to do sort of dictates what happens in the story, and how the antagonist reacts to the protagonist. That sort of dictates what happens in the story. I never really know how it's going to end, but I am a bit of a softie, so I don't know if I could ever really, do something completely horrific. Like, have you read The Mist or seen The Mist by Stephen King?
No.
Oh my God. The ending of that book is absolutely horrific, but completely unforgettable. But I don't think I could ever do anything. I'm not going to tell people because I don't want to give it away. But yeah, I don't think I could ever do that. But no, I'm a complete pantser. I like, your imagination runs wild and you just go for it. But anyway, so Sam has a question. What drew you all to crime fiction? Casey?
Oh, I don't know really. I think I first, when I was younger, I read all like the Nancy Drew, so I guess that's got a crime element to it. And then I went on to Virginia Andrews' Flowers in the Attic, so something a bit more like dark. And then Martina Cole. And I think the first book I read was Lady Killer when I was about 16. And I think for me, it just had such a kind of shock factor. It was so violent, so graphic, and written by a woman as well. I think it just changed my whole mindset on reading and books. And I really like to watch that kind of thing as well, kind of gangsters, Ray Winston and Tom Hardy and all the gangster things. So I think they say write what you love or write what you know. And obviously I don't know about being a gangster or a criminal, but I do love that genre. So I think that's particularly why I got into crime.
Yeah, awesome. Sarah?
Well, my mum is a huge crime reader. So I grew up on a diet of Agatha Christie, P.D. James, Ruth Rendell. We watched Inspector Morse every Sunday. I mean, my mum's bookshelves, there is no romance. It is all crime. So I think it was almost inevitable that I would also follow in those footsteps, really. And I just really enjoy crime fiction. I enjoy the puzzle. I enjoy most genres of crime fiction as well. So the first book I wrote was actually a romantic comedy, but I felt I kind of found my stride when I switched to crime.
Yeah, awesome. Well, for me, I don't know why I've always gravitated to the dark side, even though I'm quite girly. But you said about Morse. I have this really vivid memory of watching Morse, and I was 13, so it's quite embarrassing. But watching Morse and then going to bed and then creeping back downstairs and telling Mum and Dad I couldn't go to sleep because I was so scared from what I'd seen on Morse. How sad is that? But anyway, yeah, that's me. So even though, it scares the hell out of me, I just like to write the darker side of stuff. I just find it, morbidly fascinating and exciting. Sarah has another question. So she said, Sarah, you mentioned the snowflake method. What other resources would you recommend for writers, or what would we all recommend for writers, whether starting out or established? So Sarah, do you want to fire away first?
So an organisation that's really helped me has been Jericho Writers. So I first went to their Festival of Writing in about 2014. There's various ways you can access Jericho Writers. I think their newsletter's free and it comes out once a week and it's got loads of writing tips and advice. You can join as a member and there's a monthly membership fee, and then you can access loads of videos. They have webinars, they have a festival every summer, and you can get loads and loads and loads of advice about plot, character, structure. Literally,
their articles are brilliant, aren't they? I actually work as a freelance editor for Jericho.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, and they're such a brilliant company.
Yeah,
if I'd known about them, I would have used them before. You know.
Yeah, I was quite lucky because I kind of found them in the early days. So I've sort of almost grown up with them, if you like.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, they're a fantastic resource. Curtis Brown does some online courses as well. I mean, you don't have to pay for craft books. You can go to your local library. There's loads and loads of advice out there. I think the thing to think about is to do it critically and think, does this work for me? Because you can't really absorb every piece of advice you learn. A lot of it's contradictory as well. So
yeah, good tip. Casey, what's your advice?
I think for any kind of, people that want to write a book, I think just the main thing is to sit down and write, because so many people have told me over the years, I really want to write a book, and a year later I'll say, oh, how's it going? And they're like, oh, I haven't found the time. And I think you have to make it a priority. Like, if you want to do it, you have to just sit down and write. There's no magical formula that's going to make it appear on the page in front of you. Once you have got a book, I think the Writers and Artists Yearbook, that's one of the things I always tell people, because you get into, you've to submit to an agent or get a publisher. Basically, when you're starting out, I think that's really, really important. It's very, very useful. We were talking about being pantsers as well, and there is a book called is it By the Seat of My Pants by Libby? I can't remember her surname, but it's fantastic. It's a really good book about the writing process.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and I'd just advise everybody to make sure you read as many books as you can in your chosen genre, because it's a brilliant way of picking up what works, but also working out what's already been done and how you can come at it in an original way.
Yeah.
So we have a Facebook user. I can't see their name, unfortunately, but they say, Casey, what is the title of your novel that sees the main character, a lady, try to run a pub in East London and take over the empire? I read this and really enjoyed it and contacted you on your website. No spoilers for other members, but it was a great book. And when I read crime novels, it's like a journey from a journey. That's Andrew in Nottingham, I think.
I think you might mean Bad Blood. I mean, there is a lot of pubs in the East End in the gangster books that feature in there. So I think you might mean the Woods family, Harry Woods and his family, and that would be Bad Bloods.
Okay, awesome. Somebody else says, question to both of you. So Sarah, if you want to answer first this time. So do you plan in detail or come up with a vague? I think we've kind of covered this. So you said you sort of do the snowflake method, didn't you, Sarah? So it's sort of in between, like it's not extreme intricate planning, but
I usually know the beginning, middle and end, and then I might plan the first sort of 10 chapters, write them, and then I'll plan the next 10 chapters, and then I'll sometimes go back and change things as I go as well.
And Casey, with your gangland books, you didn't really plan at all?
No, not at all. I think generally I had a character in mind and it'd be about the character, but sometimes it would be a certain scene, or I'd have a very rough idea of a beginning, a middle and an end, and then it's just everything else in between that I kind of just went with.
Yeah.
Even with my plotting, I think because I'm not used to plotting, it probably feels to me like I've done loads of plotting, but for a real professional plotter, they'd be like, what's these notes on your page? It's not, I still do like the element of surprise on where the story's going to take.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I don't think I could write if I knew what was going to happen.
No, I mean, I have to say, I'm on book 15 at the moment. So book 15 is my next psychological thriller. And I kind of feel like, I've done this before, 14 times before. It's, and I've really struggled this time with the writing process. I think I handed the book in late. It wasn't going quite the way I wanted. I had to kind of really rejig the plot and the structure of the story. And for me, it really threw me because I wasn't expecting it. Because I think, people say the more you write, it gets easier. But I don't think that's the case. I think every single book is different, and it really has kind of like opened my eyes to how different it can be. I mean, luckily we're getting there with it now, but it's a bit of a shock at book 15.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's just such a roller coaster of a journey, really, isn't it? I think book 2 is particularly hard because, you know, if your first book's done quite well, then you feel the pressure for the second book. Tommy Davies says, hello, how much time do you spend reading other books? Lee Child claims to read a book a day. Do you read a range of books or just crime fiction? So, Sarah?
I certainly don't read a book a day. I'd love to. That'd be brilliant. I read about 4 books a month, and I usually have 2 or 3 of them will be crime fiction. So, like you say, Abby, I try to read what's just come out, quite contemporary crime fiction. But then I'm very eclectic. So the other one will be, I've recently read Dracula, which I'd never read before. I'll read science fiction. I'll read literally anything that just takes my fancy, really.
Yeah.
So I do read a lot of crime fiction, but I'm open to everything, really.
Yeah. Casey?
I am mainly crime. I don't really. I've actually just read Marion Key's book, the one that she brought out for the 25-year anniversary. So for me, that was really different, and it was lovely. It was a really nice break from crime, but I really just like really dark crime.
Yeah.
I read a lot. I actually. In lockdown was the first time I listened to an audiobook. Never listened to an audiobook until then. And it's become a bit of an addiction for me. It's like my husband comes home and the house has been cleaned, the dog's been walked, but really into my books.
That's the advantage of audiobooks then. I need to get into them. I find them really difficult. Like I tried listening to Harry Potter, and with Stephen Fry doing Hermione's voice, I mean, he's brilliant, but I just could not picture Hermione because I could hear him pretending to be a little girl, and I just couldn't get sucked into it. But I have read like The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson. Have you read that? That is seriously dark, seriously disturbing, but absolutely brilliant. And I listened to that on audiobook, and that was amazing. I also listened to Carrie by Stephen King on audiobook, which I'd highly recommend, and that really inspired Mother Loves Me as well. So, but I don't tend to go for audiobooks because the narrator's voice usually sucks me out of it.
Yeah, that's really important. I think if you find a really good narrator, I just read one recently, and it was The Silent Child, and it was fantastic. The narrator was brilliant. The story was brilliant. Sarah Davies, and also The Serial Killer's Wife by Alice Hunter.
Oh, I've read that. Yeah.
That was the first audiobook I ever listened to. She's the one who got me hooked.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
But
I like to have the audiobook for daytime and a book for.
Yeah, that's a really good idea because I'm rubbish at chores. But I'm sure if I had something to listen to, I'd probably just get on with it.
I do listen to podcasts while doing chores, but I haven't got into audiobooks either because I find that my attention's drifting somewhere else, so I'm missing huge chunks.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the problem I found. But it's been a while since I tried an audiobook, so I could maybe try again.
I find audiobooks work well in the car when I'm driving somewhere and I'm so utterly bored that I have to listen in and can't drift, you know. Right, somebody else has said, I'm really sorry, I don't know who this... Oh, no, it's Andrew again, Andrew in Nottingham. He said, Abby and Sarah, are your books available on audio, please? Mine are. Are yours?
My first one isn't, and my latest one is. So The Wedding Murders is available on audio.
Oh, fantastic, brilliant. And then somebody else has said, I know Casey has done this and blew me away when she did it. Abby and Sarah, have either of you considered putting a disabled character in a book? Sarah, have you thought about it? I actually have thought about it. Yeah, I have thought about it, but I felt like maybe I was on a bit of dangerous territory because I don't know. I would have to do so much research to make it.
Yeah.
To make sure. And I think I'm a little bit lazy with research. Like I like to just be able to write and not really stop and read. You know, I might do a tiny Google like, where's there a remote mountain for the most recent one I'm writing. It's set on the Skiddaw Mountains, and my geography's rubbish, so you know I'll take like 5 seconds to do a tiny Google search. But I think that would be an amazing thing to attempt. So
I have a character who has a medical condition, so they're not disabled, but they have a medical condition which is similar to a medical condition that I have, but not the same. So I did interview somebody with that medical condition. I'm trying not to give the plot away because it is a plot point. So I did interview somebody who had that medical condition, and then they read the chapters as well to make sure that it was correct.
Yeah.
And that it was representative. I think the same goes as you say as well. If it was a main character, I would want to make sure that I've got the representation spot on.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I'm definitely up for that. I mean, Will Dean writes deaf protagonist in his books, and I think they're excellent. They're really good. And as far as I'm aware, Will is not deaf.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing to be able
I
to do.
think when I wrote my story, it's part of a trilogy about a police officer, and the book that Andrew's talking about, I haven't actually got it here, but it's a trilogy, and the first one is called No Escape. And I didn't really think too much about the main character, the victim, being disabled. It kind of just came naturally, his situation, his lifestyle. And really what I was thinking about is in all of the books, you know, the crimes are committed against women, children, like vulnerable people. And, you know, we do write about a lot of situations that we don't know anything about. And we are not even without doing too much research. I think we just, you know, the feeling of being bullied or picked on or being vulnerable. And I think that's where he came from. Just, you know, another victim in life that, you know, has been set upon by this horrible person. And it's from their angle, really.
Yeah, interesting. So we've got no more questions at the moment, so I'll turn to mine. So, Sarah, what do you like most about the act of writing?
I really like the beginning bit. I love making things up, and I like that freedom of just seeing where it goes, and yeah, just really enjoy writing that first draft. And then, strangely, I really, really like the copy edits. I just love making sure that my commas are in the right place. Don't message me if they're not. But I like that finishing and polishing bit. And then the bit in between the editing, I find quite hard work. So yeah, they're the two bits that I like the most.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely hate the first draft.
Really?
I do love the initial idea, you know, and you're like, oh, I've got this brilliant idea. And as soon as the words go down the page, if I think about 15 to 20,000 words in, I'm over it. Then it becomes really hard work. And I actually love the edits. As soon as my editor's read it and we've got a bit of feedback and a bit of, you know, I feel like that's where the book really starts coming together for me. I think particularly the last couple of books, I don't know if it's because of lockdown and we were living in a bit of a strange world for a couple of years, but the first draft really was, you know, work. So
hard work. Yeah.
Give me the edits.
Yeah. It is hard to keep going, isn't it, sometimes? But you've just got to sit your bum on that seat and just go for it.
Yeah.
So another question. So if you had to describe your latest book in 3 words, Casey, what would you describe it? How would you describe it?
I would say it is dark, twisted, and unpredictable.
Awesome. Sarah?
It's fast-paced, one word. Can I get one with that? Fast-paced, fun. I'm going to go for gripping, hopefully.
Oh, awesome.
How about you?
Me. Disturbing, claustrophobic, and intense.
Very good.
Yeah. I've been writing it today. I've managed 4,500 words today, and I'm buzzing from it. Yeah. So what is your worst writerly habit?
I'm really bad with characters' names, and any advice would be very welcome, because my characters' names change constantly, and I just can't get them right. And I'll write a draft and then realise I've got two characters called Simon, or I've named it after somebody that I know, or characters' names just. Well, at one point I was writing character A, character B, character C, because I just could not get their names correct. So if you've got any advice on that, I'd be very grateful.
Oh, that's funny. Really funny.
I've got a really weird habit of, through my books, which I noticed, and I don't know if a couple of other readers might have noticed, but of using the letter J for the names, especially for the bad guys. So I like Jamie, Jason. And I kind of thought, this is becoming a bit of a pattern here. And I don't know why. I don't know whether it's
that's so random.
Yeah. So I'm really kind of, and also I think because we've got so far in the books, obviously on book 15, I'm really going to have to make a bit of a database to kind of remember what names I've used. Even for the minor characters, you do forget.
Yeah.
I think my worst habit in writing is I just constantly go back over the last scene. I know a lot of writers, they write, and that's the best advice you can have, just keep going. And do put that in the brackets, come back to this, or, you know, this name later. But I don't. I have to keep going back and back and back. So the things, especially my editor will get like these most polished first few chapters.
Yeah.
Because I can't move on until I've got them right, and which is a really
yeah, I've heard Dean Koontz is like that. Like he he'll do about 10 different versions or 10 edits of a page of writing before he moves on to the next page, which is amazing considering how prolific he is. You know, he must spend hours and hours. But yeah, with me, I think I tend to find a phrase and repeat it too much throughout my first draft. Like I think my editor found something like 80 uses of shakes the head or something like that.
You're not alone.
Yeah, you just don't realize you're doing it, do you?
The last thing I do when I polish a draft is remove all the words "just" and then put them in again, because there must be thousands of justs all the way through.
Oh my God, I use just too much as well. But now I'm aware of it, I delete it almost as soon as I write it. Yeah. And I only keep it if I absolutely have to, because it doesn't really add anything, does it?
No.
It's kind of redundant. So we've got somebody else Sam's asked, so Sam Brownlee's asked, what is the last scene that you've all written but no spoilers? A bit tricky. Who wants to go first?
You tell us your 4,500 words.
Oh, that was like 2 chapters, but my last scene is the escape scene. Ta-da! That's it. Snow is involved. That's all I'm saying.
My last scene was I was rewriting the opening of chapter 1. So I was trying to get an opening line, actually. So I sat and literally wrote lots of opening lines until I found one that I quite liked. So it wasn't, because I'm in editing at the moment, I'm not writing anything new, but I'm just kind of twiddling a lot.
Yeah.
I'm actually editing at the moment, so I've just been juggling some really big scenes, moving them around to make them work even better in the story. And the last one that I was working on today is about a girl locked away in a room somewhere.
Ooh, yes, that sounds really like my kind of thing. I love that. So somebody else has said, waiting for a bad girl called Jane. Oh, I think they're answering the question, the previous question. And Tommy Davies has said, have any of your books been turned into films or TV shows? If not, are you someone that would like this to happen, given that they might change the story without your permission? I guess this is how it works once you've handed over the rights. Would your books make better films or TV series? So there's 2 questions there.
I actually had some interest in mine. So this is a self-published book. I am with a couple of publishers, but I also self-publish. And after this was published 2 years ago, I had a Hollywood production company contact me about the film rights. And obviously I got completely carried away with myself. You know, I was ordering a ball gown to go to and we had meetings, we were going back and forth talking about that, and it was really exciting.
Oh my God.
I think I did get a bit carried away with it. I think the thing with film deals, you know, you're lucky if you get it optioned, which is when they give you the money to actually, you know, keep that as an option for them to produce. But I think from getting the book to the film is such a, you know, a small percentage of people that actually get there. So I was really excited that we had some interest in some meetings, but it didn't go anywhere. I was a bit miffed at the end of it all, but it was so exciting while it was happening. So you know, I think most authors would be really happy to have their I think I would be probably not so keen on them changing too much, because, you know, you see these adaptations and they've been changed completely, and if the author's name is still on there, you know, that can reflect their work. So, you know, you want it to kind of stay as kind of organic and as it was, as, you know.
Yeah. Sarah?
I've not had any approaches yet, fingers crossed. I do believe, though, that I want to write books, so it's great if it was adapted for a TV or film, but my first love is books, and that's what I want to write. The Wedding Murders does have a cameo with Robbie Williams in it, so I'd love Robbie Williams to actually
amazing.
be in the TV or film series of my book. I think you could have a lot of fun actually with The Wedding Murders.
Yeah. Oh, I'd absolutely love it if that happened. It would be amazing, and I'd be so, like, you know, getting my dress and everything like you would. Just get completely carried away with it. So when it comes to, you know, your dream production, if it did happen, you know, who would play the main characters of your current book, of your latest book?
I really wish I knew the actress's name, and maybe somebody in the chat can help me, but she was in a BBC series quite recently about forensics. In fact, I might just Google it. And she's perfect. She's perfect for my main character. I'm going to Google it while we...
Yeah, Google it.
I think I would really like Blake Lively.
Oh, she's good.
Yeah, she's done a few thrillers lately as well, so she's going a little bit more to like the darker side as well. I can always, with Gangland, I always think of like the typical Tom Hardy kind of, you know, for those characters. Yeah. Like thrillers, I think Blake Lively would be really good for the main character in my new one.
Yeah, awesome. Well, for me, the one I'm writing at the moment, have you seen The Bodyguard from the 90s with Whitney Houston and everything? Yeah. You know the actor who plays the creepy stalker guy? He has kind of like scraggly scarecrow, like, you know, straggly hair. That guy. But is what my antagonist looks like in my head. But obviously, I mean, he's probably too old. Well, he will be too old now. He's probably in his 60s or something now. But yeah, for the protagonist, so the protagonist is female, and I don't really know. Do you know what? I haven't really got. It's bizarre, but I haven't really got a strong image of her in my head, so I have to think about that. So we have more questions.
I've just Googled. Molly Windsor is who I would love to.
Oh, right. Oh, I look her up later.
Yeah, she's perfect.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, do you know who I do love at the moment? I can't remember her name. She would be great for my protagonist. She played the main character in the Handmaid's Tale series.
Oh, yes. Yeah. She's amazing, yeah.
She's such a good actress. I think she'd be fantastic. So Sam says, can your readers visit any of the locations from your books?
Well, a lot of the books, actually all of my books are set in London. So yes, we write about landmarks, streets. I do, when I do my research, go on to Google Maps, onto the actual street view. So sometimes I'm actually just walking down random streets, trying to work out storylines and, you know, parts of the story, and making sure that the timeline works, you know, from getting to one place to another. So yeah, mine are all set in London, even the psychological thrillers.
Yeah. And
Sorry.
Go on, Sarah.
My debut novel is a backpacking novel, so it is all places you can visit, places that are real. So it features Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. The Yorkshire location is a bit of an amalgamation of a few Yorkshire villages, so you can certainly visit places that are like that. The Wedding Murders, again, it's sort of a fictionalised Yorkshire Dales, and again, with the road trip, there's Las Vegas, there's Bangkok, there's all sorts of real.
Awesome. So how do you do your research at those places? Have you been there and you're drawing from memory, or?
Yeah, so with the trip, my husband and I actually took some time out. We went backpacking. All the sort of places that I write about in the trip we've been to, and a lot of the experiences that we had, I sort of wrote about at the time. So we went to a full moon party, and that's in the book.
I've done that.
So I've been to everywhere that I've written about, apart from Las Vegas, because that was a last minute switch. So, and again, I can't tell you why because of spoilers, but it was to do the legalities of what was legal and what wasn't legal in the country that I'd originally set it in.
Oh, right.
Because that's really hard, is that part of it. If you commit a crime somewhere else, there are different laws that you then need to
that's true.
And extradition, things like that.
Yeah. Casey, and you've already answered that question, haven't you? London, baby. So Sam says, have you? This is a great question. Oh my God, that's so funny because I do the question is, have you acted out a scene to get the details right? We've had authors who fought on Whitby Pier and held a knife to their own throat. So it's actually earlier. I can't remember exactly what I was doing. I think I was imagining I had a handcuff on me and I was handcuffed to a bed. So a little bit of a spoiler. And I was trying to do something with my other hand. And I was kind of going like that, just like just motioned in the air to myself. And if anybody had been watching me, they would have thought I'm completely nuts. But yeah, I do kind of that sort of thing, like working out right hand and left hand and, how your body would move if you were to do a particular action. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think that kind of thing, definitely. I also have a couple of friends who are like paramedics. So sometimes it'll be even more gruesome than that. It'll be like, what does an eyeball sound like when it's popped?
Oh, that's horrible.
Gruesome. You just want to get the facts. But yeah, a few friends have had a very few random messages.
Yeah. Right.
My dad's brilliant for this. So we go walking and we walked along the river to try and find out where the body might end up and that kind of thing. And he's brilliant. He's quite frighteningly good at knowing how to.
Really good at the logical side of it.
Yeah. So
even though it's fiction, you do still want to have that element, don't you? You want to kind of get your facts right as well, because I get a lot of feedback from readers as well, saying this would never happen, so you want to kind of get it right as well, don't you? And it's all situations that we definitely haven't been in.
And I mean, if even as a reader, that if you're reading something and you question its authenticity, you're tugged out of that fictional world and it kind of ruins the story for you just momentarily. And then when you finish the whole story, it's bizarre, but you'll remember that little bit where you sort of question something. So yeah, it's so important. So somebody, it's Andrew again. Hi, Andrew. He says, your latest psychological thriller, Casey, how long did it take from the first draft, then to your publisher and to the bookshops? This question also for Sarah and Abby.
I'm published with Bookature, which is a digital publisher. So generally they like me to write 2 books a year. So you'll be writing one while you're editing the second one. I think ideally from the first time I put a word on the page until it's published, I'd like to say a year, but it has been quicker than that. I like to have at least 3 months for a really sort of, for the first draft, and then we do about 6 months back and forth with edits.
Yeah.
So I'd say, I mean, if you could ask me what I would like, it'd be a year. But I haven't always been given that, or haven't always had that option. So
yeah, it's been about a year for me as well.
I'm kind of in awe of people who write a book a year. So it takes about 2.5 years. I was calculating earlier today, from sort of initial idea to actual publication. I'm hoping to get a bit faster, but it's not happening.
Well, it's so subjective, isn't it? Everybody has a different process. Everybody takes.
And I am working on more than one book at a time as well.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. See, I don't do that. I devote everything to one project and then move on to the next one. Casey, can I just ask, why did you decide to self-publish as well?
I actually, because I changed genre, I was gangland all the way until I self-published mine. And by the time I offered it to my publisher, they did actually want to take it on board, but the way that they could fit it into the schedule was going to be sort of 8 months down the line, and then royalties for the year after. Yeah. I just feel like I've self-published before a long time ago when I first started out in 2011. And I just thought, I'm just going to do it again and just, see what. And I have to say, it's very different now to what it used to be, like very, very different. But it was really successful. I really enjoyed it. And I think it's really nice to have, as authors, to have like different streams of income. So, you've got several different publishers and self-publishing. And I think that's a really good way to do it. My publishers were really supportive because it was out of genre with them. It wasn't an issue. And I ended up publishing 3 books that year, and it was 2020, the year that went mad. I ended up publishing 3 books, as you do.
Wow.
So 1 self-published and then 2 with them. So it worked out really well. But no, I think we just have a bit more power and control over our careers now. We've got a lot more options, and readers have a lot more options. They have a lot more books coming out, and
awesome. So we've got another question. So thanks for asking this. I'm not sure who it is. You're offered a biopic of your own lives. Who would you pick to play yourself, Sarah?
Gosh, that's a really hard question, and I really don't think anybody would want a biopic of my life. I'm gonna swerve this question and say that I'd like the love interest to be played by Ewan McGregor, please.
Oh, got a bit of a crush, have we? Casey, who would you have? Blake Lively.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with Blake.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Who would I have? Oh, my God. Oh, Jennifer Aniston.
Oh, yeah.
I love her. She's awesome.
Yeah.
So Sam says, who reads your books first? For me, it's my dad. He is just... ever since I was 18 and wrote my first book, he's read every single thing and given me, reams of notes and edits and everything. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I actually banned my dad from reading my books.
Was he too critical?
Yeah, because they had sex scenes in them. I said he's not allowed to read them. Said Mum, I gave them to my mum. I was like, she can read them. My dad cannot read them. And then I think he picked one up one day. I think she left it down on the coffee table. And I remember he messaged me and he said, it's brilliant. He said,
amazing.
Not a big reader either. And he said that he feels like it's a film playing out while he's reading it. And he's always been really supportive. But at first I was so kind of shy about what I'd written. I was like, oh my God, my dad can't read it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was quite similar to you in that respect, but my best friend reads it, and she's a very avid crime reader. So she always reads it first. And I usually ask writers from my writing group to see if anybody's willing to read it as well. That's really helpful, I think, to get writer's perspective as well as readers' perspectives.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm brave enough with my first drafts to do that. I think I have my best friend, she always reads the first copy, and my sister-in-law always reads the first copy. But other than those 2 people, it's just the editors. I don't until it's out there on NetGalley. And
Oh God, it's so nerve-wracking when it goes out, isn't it? Oh, even when your editor's told you it's good, you're still sort of second guessing it and thinking what people think.
I don't think it ever changes. Every single book.
Really?
Every single book. yet. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, it's quite tortuous sometimes, isn't it? So somebody else has said, and thank you for this question. It said, I've read both of Abby's books and the last one of Casey's, not read one of Sarah yet. Okay, that's not a question, but thank you. Sam says, what did you do for your recent book launches? I didn't have one. Again, because of COVID, it was just the timing and everything. What about you guys?
No, I get really, really nervous. So this time round, what I decided to do is make it really low key. So I bought myself some daffodils and some chocolate, and I watched Bridgerton. And
I love Bridgerton.
I just really enjoyed it, and I thought, yeah, I'm doing this from now on.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, I think it's really important to mark the occasion, because in lockdown, the first book that I brought out, No Escape, I didn't plan anything, and on social media, it was a social media blackout that day. They were doing a big Black Lives Matter protest, so everyone came off social media. So we weren't even online with the book, and I hadn't planned anything for the night because it was lockdown, and it was probably the most depressing publication day ever.
I can imagine.
Normally we go out for a meal, we'll have a bottle of champagne, we'll do something to mark the occasion. My first traditionally published book was Bad Blood, and because I'd done 3 self-published before that, and then I got my first traditional deal, I did have a big party. I had all my family, all my friends, the publishers came down. And it was just really just to mark the occasion that I'd finally got this deal that I'd been hoping for. But yeah, I mean, as much as I'd love to have 2 or 3 parties a year for every book we bring out, it's just not. But I do think we should mark the occasion, because we work so hard.
Yeah.
And out there, and we're kind of sitting behind the computer still, aren't we? So I think we need to celebrate it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to celebrate my next one. I'm going to do something crazy. So Sam says, my husband asks me who will play me in the movie every time I complain about something trivial. She says, we love your dad, he's such a sweetheart. I think that's talking about mine. Kim Wood, thank you for the question. She says, what did you read as a child? So we know Nancy Drew was a go-to for us. What else did you read, Sarah? What did you read?
Anything and everything. So Enid Blyton, Secret 7, Famous 5. I was writing my own series, which is called The Secret 6, when I was about 7 or 8. Plagiarized. Yeah, Agatha Christie. I used to try and read kind of sneak inappropriate books out of my mum's bookshelf, so the more adult crime novels. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah.
Were you a complete bookworm?
Always have been.
Yeah, I was.
Penelope Lively, actually, and I recently went to my aunt's house, and she had The Ghost of Thomas Kemp, which was so good, and I read it again, and I just loved
that. I think I'm the same. I had like all the fairy tale books. At Christmas time you get big fairy tale books.
Yeah.
And my mum read me the first story I remember, I think because it was such a heartbreaking story, The Little Matchstick Girl. It really did. I think I probably cried my eyes out, but I loved the story as well. So she used to read it all the time. And then as I got older, obviously Nancy Drew. And then I don't know if you remember the Sweet Valley High twins.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. And then
Babysitter's Club.
Yeah, all kind of books. I mean, they were just kind of cult classics, weren't they?
Yeah.
And then I do remember again, like Sarah, like stealing books that you shouldn't from your mum's bookshelf, like The Flowers in the Attic. And I remember actually there was like a book on witchcraft and things like that, kind of spooky stuff. I thought it was very interesting. I was very young when I was reading it.
It's hilarious. It's covertly stealing books.
Yeah,
you wouldn't get kids doing that these days. Yeah, I mean, I was the same, and but I did quite like fantasy when I was growing up. I loved The Worst Witch, was my favorite series when I was like 6 or 7, and yeah, I wrote my first story when I was about 7, and it was about a kidnapping. It was so dark. Yeah, so I was always a bit twisted. But yeah, so we've got more questions here. Sam says, is there somewhere you would like to live while you write a book set there? That's a great question.
Thailand. I'd love to.
Me too. Thailand twice. It's my favorite place I've ever been, and I would just give any excuse to live there.
Yeah,
like for a bit. Yeah. Casey?
I don't know if I mean, myself and my husband, we have been talking for a long time about eventually moving to Greece. We just fallen in love with Greece. And that's our kind of plan going forward. But I don't know about setting a book there. I'm not sure. But
I think when you're there, you'll get inspiration.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to sit there and write.
A gang series in Greece. Awesome. So I've got some more questions. It's a bit of a silly question. What's your go-to snack or drink when you're writing? I was obsessed with prawn cocktail crisps for a while, but I've gone off that now.
I like cola bottles actually, and coffee. Just vats and vats of coffee, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have coffee like on my trip.
I know, it's bad.
It's terrible. It really is.
This is I love this question. So what are your 3 favourite books of all time if you had a gun to your head and you had to say 3 favourite books of all time? And why? What is it that you love about them so much? It's a hard question, isn't it?
Okay, shall I go?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm going to go. I've already mentioned 2 of the books anyway. The Little Matchstick Girl, because I think that's the book that stole my heart when I was 5, and I was a complete bookworm after that. The Lady Killer by Martina Cole, because it had such shock factor and really did change the whole way I thought about books and writing. And I'm going to say All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood, because I read it a couple of years ago in lockdown, and it just stayed with me afterwards. And it's a really controversial book. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's got a really tough subject matter, so it's not for everybody. But I thought her writing was beautiful, and it has just stayed with me. Probably one of the best books I've ever read.
It's books that stay with you, isn't it?
Yeah.
That really
affect you. And actually, all 3 of those books have really affected me. So I think that's definitely my top 3.
Sarah.
So my favourite book of all time, I think, is And the Mountains Echoed by Kelleher. I just think that's a beautiful book. It's heartbreaking, but it's beautifully written. And if I could write like that, that's the dream. I really enjoyed Life After Life by Kate Atkinson, and I love the idea of that kind of mythical realism. So that book's sort of about reincarnation, and then probably Jane Eyre. I think I'd have to take Jane Eyre with me. She's been with me all my life since my grandma gave me a copy when I was 11, and I've read it and reread it and reread it.
Oh, lovely. I'd say The Help by Catherine Stockett. Have you read that?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so moving and profound, and it's just so memorable. And I've listened to the audiobook as well of that, and that they really pull it off. They just sound so like the characters. And Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and We Begin at the End by Chris Whitaker, which is just so moving, but hilarious at times as well. And it's amazing because none of them are psychological thrillers, but that's what I write. But yeah, I think they're my 3 top. So Sam says, other than your books, have you written other things that readers can look for?
Not a lot. A couple of short stories, a couple of poems. I've been in some anthologies, but they are generally quite localised anthologies.
And where would you find those if you wanted to hunt them out?
Probably myself and nobody else. I honestly don't know, to be honest. I don't know if they're available on Amazon or not.
But were they written quite a long time ago then?
Yeah.
Casey?
I have just written a short story for an anthology called Everyday Kindness. And that was Louise Ross put that together, and it was all the proceeds went to shelter, and that was a really lovely book. So it's just a short story, which I found a really big challenge. I think it's easy to come up with 80,000 words, and me too. I
can't write short stories. God, well done. That's amazing.
But I think when I was going to ask you guys actually, when you were talking about being younger and writing, Sarah, you were saying about the stories that you wrote. I always had a diary, so I was always writing, and I used to write some really sort of dark poetry and things as well. So I just wondered, have you always both written as well?
I have, yeah. I kept a diary but only from about the age of 11 to 18, I think. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I've always written short stories. Yeah, always sort of journaled, that kind of thing. Always wanted to be a writer.
Yeah. I was 18 when I really decided I wanted to be a writer. And I just went for it, and like 90,000 words in 7 weeks while I was packing the same box of crayons for 7 hours a day at Crayola Factory. And I was planning in my head what I was going to write, thinking about what I was going to write. And I thought, it was so naive. I thought I'd send it off and it would get published straight away. And it took me 18 years to get published. Right, we have a question from Andrew Shropshire. And he says, and I think this will probably be our last question, before becoming published authors, who was your immediate go-to author to read? Hi, Andrew.
I'm a huge fan of a writer called Emily Barr. And what she does, which I try to do as well, is she combines psychological thriller with travel writing. So she has books just set everywhere that you would love to go to. She's got books set in India, the Arctic. I can't remember if it's the Arctic or Antarctica, but it's one of the poles. And her book Backpack was really, really influential on me as a writer. So I love Emily Barr, and also I go back to A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. That's my comfort read. I love it.
Awesome. Casey?
I read every single book that Martina Cole brought out. Complete fangirl, obviously for the gangland genre. And I think now it's Lisa Jewell. Every book that Lisa Jewell writes, absolutely love.
Yeah, she's brilliant, isn't she? I've read quite a few of hers. Yeah, she's just so good. Right, so guys, we're up for time now. So Sam says, thank you all so much for a fantastic hour. Can you both remind us about your books?
Well, thank you very much for hosting it, and thank you for your questions, Abby, and everybody else for their questions too. So the most recent book is The Wedding Murders, and my debut is The Beach, which is also known as The Trip, as an ebook.
Awesome.
I have got Mine, which is a psychological thriller, Mine, and the latest one, which is I'll Never Tell.
Okay, and very quickly, I have my debut, which is Back to Front. Why is mine Back to Front and yours isn't? Mother Loves Me, and my one that came out in October, The Cult. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully see you next time. Okay, bye.